Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Great pleasure to welcome you all here at our Cluster of Excellence, Understanding Written Artifacts at the Center for the Study of Manuscript Cultures. Today's event is very much encapsulating in many ways what this place is about, what our researchers want to achieve, what we are working on. And I think one of the first aspects, which are quite typical, is the collaboration with an international partner, in this case, the National Library of Israel. And it's a particular pleasure for me to welcome the head of Archives and Special Collection, Matan Barzilai, who has joined us from Jerusalem. And this cooperation with the National Library of Israel is a long-standing cooperation which has been going on for many years by now. Within the last years, one of the highlights or the focus point was the project Wandering Artifacts, the Materialistic History of German Jewish Archives, led by Giuseppe Veltri, who will say some words later on. And in this framework, we have digitized hundreds of thousands of pages of German Jewish archives, collection, personal papers of German Jewish intellectuals of the late 19th and early 20th century. That happened in 2021, 2023. This has been completed by now. That's correct? Yeah, no, it's completed. So for once, there's something in academia which has been completed. This is fully usable on the premises of the National Library. The remote access is forthcoming in the foreseeable future, I dare say, by now. This project and the cooperation with the National Library of Israel has continued now with the project by Sebastian Schürmeister, A Fresh Look, Visualizing Digitized German Jewish Archives, which is building basically on the achievement which we have. And this cooperation with the National Library of Israel is part of a large network of partner institutions of the cluster in Europe, North America, but also across Asia and Africa. And in the room, for those who are in the room who are not online, there's also a touch table on which the viewer for this project is accessible today. I've just played around with it a little bit and was quite impressed how nicely it works and how nice it is to navigate. But this touch table this touch table will go to another partner institution of ours, the excavation site in Millet in modern-day Turkey, where the virtual research environment, which we have built of the ancient theater of Millet and the inscriptions in this theater, will be available for the visitors of the museum on site. So this is basically a nice linkage between different international cooperation which we have here in the room. The second reason why I think this project is quite typical for what we want to do and what we are doing in this cluster is that it very nicely brings together the focus on materiality in the cluster by bringing together humanities and computer science approaches. And in this framework, we have cooperated very closely with the Hub of Computing and Data Science and Marty Zeman, who was meant to be here, but who will now also speak online, and his colleagues who have worked hard on this, have greatly contributed to make this possible. The guest books, which is at the center of this case study, which we are presenting today of Miryam and Moshe Yaakov Ben-Gavriêl, ticks in many ways many boxes of what we are interested in. It is multilingual and multiscriptural with Chinese and Arabic and Hebrew and cuneiform script in it. It shows technological changes or different approaches with pencil, ball pen, and typewriter even in there. So this seems to be a later edition. It's multi-graphic with drawings, photographs, text, happily intermingling on its pages. And it is great to see that these three partners, the National Library of Israel, the Hub, and the cluster, have contributed and partnered up to explore venues how the digital twins of such written artifacts can be explored. What are the possibilities for us as scholars to work with these digital artifacts? And this is particularly important, and I think this is the broader idea of this whole case study and of the project which we are conducting here. It's coming out of a collection which is very lightly cataloged, i.e. we don't have deep cataloging. It's very difficult to find material when you go to the catalog of the National Library of Israel. And this is not the fault of the National Library of Israel, but this is just a normal fact. It's one of those collections where you only have a rough idea once you enter it. And of these, we have hundreds, thousands, 10,000, I would say hundreds of thousands of collections worldwide in museums, libraries, and archives. Another partner of ours, Literaturarchiv Marbach, they have hundreds of those lightly catalogued collections. And these collections will most likely never been catalogued in depth. These might be, I don't want to say that they are not, but it's just impossible that these collections will be catalogued in depth. There's just not the personal power for that. Handwritten text recognition will not solve the problem, I'm pretty sure. A, it's not there yet, and B, with this stuff, it will always need a lot of input by humans to make this intelligible. So I think we have to think about other ways of how to make such lightly cataloged large bundles of digital artifacts available for researchers. And what you did in this project, I think, is one of the possible venues of how it could play out. And I hope that it will find further developments and further use cases in future. Thank you very much. And now it's Giuseppe's turn. Huh?
After the presentation of a Quran, my answer would be Amen. And that is all, Amen. This is always, that is so. But I have to say the 2 or 3 words about the interest of Jewish studies in the Hebrew language. I think there's no necessity to say that the National Library of Israel for us is something like home. We are there all the period from the beginning of my activity in 1993 in Israel until now, and the next month, Matan will be there. After 3 years, I will have a trip to Israel, and I hope that I will find Israel. That is the many things here. Okay, what is interesting for me? The beginning, of course, I was in the old library, and I was very looking forward to see the new library, because that was the first time. I know that people say it's wonderful, but I have to have an authentic impression of the library. The interest for me is also because, not because I'm German, you know, I'm Italian, but it's German Jewish archives. And the German Jewish archives are German Jewish. It doesn't mean that German is a very important one, and the Jewish also. But you know, the language, the German language is not at the top in Israel. It was in 1920, 1930, but now I think there is very few numbers of how you can learn German. It doesn't mean you can also not read German. That is also one, as some in Haifa and also in Tel Aviv, you can learn German, have also German Institute, but it's not important one. That is the why I tell them, we had that together with Sebastian, also another event here, and that was also the lecture of Stefan Lichter said I was the first, Giuseppe, was the first one to digitalize the German Jewish archives. I was surprised because the first work with the National Library was about Leopold Zunz. And Leopold Zunz is somewhat 120,000 items, and now it's all in internet. The beautiful things to say, and I think Sebastian told me, it was a surprise also, that we will take over the program from the University of Halle. Halle has no interest to have to have a program, and also to try to also to have a tutorship over all the archival students. Why Halle? Because the students have got his PhD in Halle. And therefore, it was not something to do Halle and the Saale. No, it was so. Okay, so to be very simple, we will have also in the future a major situation in Germany to have also the archive of students, at least the door into the archive and in the pictures. And the idea to go further and to is of course not in the last 2 years, but I think we need in the future also to have a major project on it, I hope. And also the problem is, as Konrad also said, how to cope with millions of items. That is a problem of processing. And the other one here, that is the idea that we have a law. We have too many, too much. And we are only, with our perspective, very, very, how to say, no, that isn't, okay, we are not ignorant, but we don't know how to go this forest of the data. And but I think the idea to have the first impression, a guestbook, is important to see how people also have the first way to a library and to other institution with the guestbook. You know, guestbook, I think so, but you are perhaps much more informed. It is a German invention, German literary invention, because in Italy there is not a guestbook of libraries. There is only a catalog, and the book people borrow the book, but not the commentary and the perhaps in the books, in the hand manuscript, but not in the original one. Therefore, it is for me as important for me it's a beautiful surprise to have a guestbook, and beautiful surprise to have you very interested in the topic, and I hope that the new cluster for you and for all of us, the new cluster will also take seriously the immense, huge numbers of items in Jerusalem, and also to try a way also to finance a new work of we hope probably also to work of digitalization of all things. Thank you very much. Thank you for interest. Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian, for organizing to come here. And I think that is important for us also to go further and to go and also to organize being German and of course on Jewish. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Weltri, Professor Hirschler, for your warm and kind words, and Sebastian for inviting me here and arranging this occasion with all the small details. Dear friends, colleagues at the CSMC Center, and who's watching us from Israel and other places, dear all. In any language, it is the same. Friendship is great. In these words, Sophie Udin signed the Ben-Gavriêl Guestbook on the 18th of June, 1939. Sophie Udin was a feminist Jewish leader. Early in the 20s, she visited Palestine and collaborated with Professor Hugo Bergman to merge the traditional National Library into the new Hebrew University in Jerusalem. But then, after a short while after, she left to New York and came back only in the 50s to establish and manage the State Archives of Israel. So what did Sophie Udin do in Jerusalem at the Ben-Gavriêl house in 1939? This visit is missing from both her biographies. One was written just recently by Dr. Moshe about 2-3 years ago, and the other one was written by Kia Keren in the early 80s. However, both biographies are missing this part. This visit in Jerusalem in the 1939 is missing. But Sophie Heinen's signature is well documented in the Ben-Gavriêl Guestbook, just like many other fascinating and emotional historical details about the people who passed through the cultural salon of Ben-Gavriêl over 40 years, as you know, and this is the reason why we are celebrating here. So the digital restoration of this guestbook, taking it apart and putting it back together piece by piece, is an extraordinary process, which I have to admit I've never seen anything like it before. It is a unique combination of thorough archival work, advanced technology, and a great passion. Just like the guestbook in its new digital form was built brick by brick, so was the work on this item. The traditional methods applied by the National Library's archival department over a decade ago provided the foundations. Then, as part of what we call in the National Library, what we call the Hamburg project, we were able to take the work a few steps further, thanks to a generous donation and a wonderful collaboration with the CSMC. We digitized and made accessible to the archives of 24 prominent German Jewish cultural figures whose archives are hosted in the National Library of Israel. And now, finally, we've reached what seems to be, at the moment at least, the final stage of this guest book, a beautiful, digitized, searchable, and transcribed book, thanks to all the work that has been done here. The work that has been done by my colleague, Dr. Sebastian Schirmeister, and others, which several of you have met this morning and in these few days that I'm here. This work enables us to retrieve names and historical events, connect them to external databases, present them in multi-language interface, and even reconstruct forgotten historical stories and narratives. This combination of thorough archival work, advanced technology, and great passion, as I mentioned, is precisely what I encountered throughout our joint efforts on the Hamburg project. Collaborating with the CSMC Center, which I'm honored to visit here today, has been a unique convergence of this strength. Now I know this is no coincidence. These are the strengths that stand in the core of the activity of the CSMC. I can only hope that we will be able to continue collaborating in future projects involving archives and manuscripts. This passion of discovering and understanding the past and the precision of documenting it is something that I encounter everywhere here, not just professionally, but also personally. Hamburg is the city where my family lived for about 100 years, from 1839 to 1939. It is where my grandmother, Jenny Polak, previously Yoel, grew up until she was 11. My grandmother had 3 brothers, and their parents all managed to immigrate to Palestine on time, and I can also add they all lived long and meaningful lives in Israel. I also have my dad here with me on his first visit to Hamburg to mark it. Another member of this family, Yoel family, Bernard Yoel, earned his PhD here in the University of Hamburg in 1923, and later became the chief librarian of the National Library in Jerusalem. So for me, visiting this place feels like bringing together my family's past and my professional work. I'm deeply grateful to my colleagues here in the center for your incredible work with manuscripts and artifacts, for promoting and using cutting-edge tools, and for combining historical knowledge with modern technology so effectively. There are days of visits that are etched into humans' memory, like a visit to this house. These words were written by Rachel Blazer on the 3rd of May, 1945, in the Ben-Gavriêl's Guestbook. And that is exactly how I feel about being here at the CSMC Center. And about the wonderful collaboration that we've had over the past few years. And I wish to thank you all for that collaboration, for the great work you have done, and especially for you, Sebastian. As you all know, we are going through challenging days, full of anxiety and uncertainty. Like all of you, I'm following the news from Israel and from the Middle East with a great concern. hoping and praying for peace, quiet, and better days. In these times, we are privileged to be engaged with texts, their meaning, exploring and revealing new cultural and historical perspectives of them. In this context, I would like to share with you one last quotation from the Ben-Gavriêl's Guestbook, written by J.R. Boyden in 1960. What pleasure to find oneself in the house of people whose spirit can cross the walls. And I feel that the walls of this center are crossed by spirit of creativity and innovation. I wish to thank you all for inviting me, for sharing this time with me, and for the amazing work you've done specifically on the Guestbook of Moshe Yaakov and Miryam Ben-Gavriêl. Thank you all.
Danke, Konrad. Grazie, Giuseppe. Todamatan. Thank you for your kind opening words. My name is Sebastian Schirmeister, and I also want to very warmly welcome you here in our pavilion and you out there in the vastness of digital space. I'm very happy about the attention for this project and about the attendance. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to present results of a project that I've been hoping to do for some time and that I've been working on with some fabulous colleagues, especially from the Hub of Computing and Data Science over the last 6 months. And just a brief remark on terminology. If I say UVA, I'm referring to the Cluster of Excellence Understanding Written Artifacts at the Center for the Study of Manuscript Cultures at the University of Hamburg. It's just too long to fully pronounce it every single time. And NLI obviously is the National Library of Israel, and I think that's about the glossary we need. So let's start at the beginning. No, let's start in the beginning. Because in the beginning, as anyone who made it through the second verse of the book of Bereshit or Genesis knows, in the beginning there was tohu vavohu. Or to put it in contemporary terms, too much unstructured data. In 2021, you've heard about it, a joint digitization project between the UVA cluster and the National Library of Israel took the contents from roughly 20,000 archival files stored in 24 personal archives and turned it into close to 750,000 digital images. That's 750,000. Obviously, one person can't even look at all of it. Just 2 minutes per image would add up to 3,125 working days or 13.5 working years. And there's no funding for that. So what do you do with such a mind-bogglingly huge amount of visual data that is neither searchable nor indexed in detail, but as diverse and unique in form and content as only personal papers can be? Where do you start and what viewpoint do you take? In his essay, Birds and Frogs, from 2009, British-American physicist and mathematician Freeman Dyson famously distinguished between two inherently different types of researchers. Birds, quote, fly high in the air, unquote, and have a broad conceptual overview, whereas frogs, quote, live in the mud, unquote. And they delight in the details of particular objects in their vicinity. Now, what is the best coping strategy for dealing with these masses of digital visual data? Fly over it like a bird, or hop through it like a frog. Eventually, we came up with some sort of compromise or kind of a crossbreed that accommodates both species. That is, both approaches to research data, but we're not there yet. If we circle back to the book of Genesis for a moment, the best way of dealing with tohu vavohu apparently is distinction. Not so much between birds and frogs, but larger items like heaven and earth, light and darkness, land and water. This is how the world got structured in the beginning. Now, when I went looking for useful distinctions regarding large digital collections of cultural artifacts, I came across a number of quite intriguing papers about human information seeking strategies and the question how different interfaces and their way of visualizing the data influence what we can find and how we find it. The most illuminating distinction in this context is the one between searching and browsing. I don't want to go into details here, but very basically, searching answers to a particular, quote, information need. So a specific question. You need to know what you're looking for, and you need searchable data. Browsing, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily require previous knowledge. It works with any kind of material and is mainly based on curiosity, a sense of exploration, and a firm belief in serendipity or lucky chance. If we are completely honest, we owe a lot of our scholarly findings to chance, especially in archival contexts. In that sense, increasing the chance of chance findings can indeed be considered a substantial contribution to scholarship. Now, there's a wonderful metaphor representing the cultural practice of browsing in the digital world, the so-called information flaneur. Instead of roaming the urban space of 19th century French literature like his role model, the information flaneur is a curious, critical, and creative explorer of information space. But he needs a suitable environment to do that. Or, to quote the respective paper by Marian Dirk and his colleagues, and I quote, "Visual information landscapes should be as inviting, inspiring, and informative as possible." And this became some sort of mission statement for my current project, A Fresh Look Visualizing Digitized German Jewish Archives here at UBA. And I just realized today that apparently I even borrowed a part of the project title from this paper. The subconscious is a mean one. In any event, even the most extensive flânerie must start somewhere. In our case, it starts with one document. Given that I had tens of thousands of documents at my hands, it's legitimate to ask why this one. You've heard a lot of arguments already, and I'll try and add some more. A rational and hopefully coherent answer goes like this. The Jerusalem Guestbook of Miryam and Moshe Ben-Gavriêl exhibits past pro toto most of the characteristic features as well as most of the characteristic challenges found in the NLI's German Jewish archives. It covers several decades, contains multiple languages and alphabets in hundreds of different hands. Its written content is heterogeneous, often idiosyncratic and illegible in parts. It is therefore an ideal use case for testing technical solutions that could then be transferred and applied to larger bodies of data. All this is true, but the truth is also that I knew this guest book long before I started working here. In 2014, when I was working on my PhD, I spent a lot of time in the NLI archive reading room in Jerusalem, and I think back then Matan was still working on the landing desk in the reading room, rummaging through the archive of one Moshe Ben-Gavriêl, a Jewish writer and journalist from Vienna, who, as a young officer of 25 years, happened to be stationed with the Austro-Hungarian army in Jerusalem for a few months in 1917. He got all excited about the East, started writing about it, and became a fervent advocate of Jewish-Arab understanding and a political as well as spiritual union of all the peoples of Asia. In 1927, he and his wife, the actress Miryam Ben-Gavriêl, eventually emigrated to Jerusalem for good. As a literary scholar, I was interested in his literary work as a German language writer and his relationship with the Hebrew literary scene. But one of the most remarkable items I came across in his archive was this rather unimpressive ruled notebook bound in dark greenish-gray cloth. From 1927 to his death in 1965, it served as a guest book recording hundreds of visitors this artist couple used to entertain in their house in Jerusalem. It must have been a bustling place of cross-cultural gatherings, intellectual encounter, and artistic events. The first entry from August 1927 that you can see here on the slide documents a visit by Sheikh Nazir Hassan Ansari, director of the Indian Hospice in Jerusalem, who visited, as he writes, and I quote, "With my friend Dr. Bergman, the house of Musa Yaqub ibn Jibril. We found him to be exceptionally generous, welcoming, and cheerful," unquote. This Dr. Bergman, of course, you've heard his name already, is none other than Hugo Bergman, philosopher, schoolmate of Franz Kafka, and the first director of the Jewish National and University Library. His signature in Hebrew letters is just below the first entry. In the 1930s, the Ben-Gavriêl's home became one of the first ports of call for many Jewish immigrants who fled from Nazi persecution to Palestine. Max Brod, Arnold Zweig, Gabriele Terget, and Masha Kaleko are just some of the more famous names. In the 1950s and 60s, visitors from Germany testify to the cautious establishment of German-Israeli relations and to Moshe Yaakov Ben-Gavriêl's success as a Middle East correspondent and a humorous novelist for a post-war German readership. And this is just a taste of the countless stories hidden within the pages of the book. Every entry, every name documents a moment in an individual's history, reveals relationships, networks, and raises new questions. Now, to give you some more reason for exploring the guest book, I want to clarify some of the visitor paraphrases I hid in the announcement text of this event. There is Adolf Hitler's art enemy #1, which is obviously Oskar Kokoschka, who not only signed the guest book, but also draw a young jackal, and the card is glued into the guest book. There is C.G. Jung's dentist, Sigmund Hurwitz, who was not only a dentist, but a psychoanalyst himself. There's, of course, Amos Oz's famous uncle. You can read about him in A Tale of Love and Darkness, Josef Klausner. There's Franz Kafka's Hebrew teacher, Friedrich Thieberger. There's, who's called a number of times, Heinrich Heine's legitimate heiress, Masha Kaleko, the poet. There's the inventor of Hebrew shorthand, Yaakov Maimon, who was also chief of protocol for the Eichmann trial. And there's one of the most fascinating figures of this guest book, a Nazi traveling to Palestine, Leopold Itzedler von Miltenstein, who was there in 1933, traveling to Palestine, looking at what the Jews are doing there and writing about it for a Nazi newspaper. But even with all these fascinating personalities, the fact remains that we are talking about one single artifact, digitized in 106 images, representing exactly 0.014% of the whole material. So as you can see, it's not exactly a giant leap towards completeness, not even one small step. But we did our best to make it look bigger and cut up these 106 scanned double pages into almost 1,200 individual entries, indexed about 600 visitors so far, and created more than 20,000 data points with information both on the entries and on the visitors. You should see the Excel sheet. It just looks like some more tohu vabohu, but it is in fact rather structured data with all the inevitable shortcomings of a man-made data collection like typos, inconsistencies, and gaps. But it opens new doors to new ways of visualization and exploration because, as I said in the beginning, this is what this project is all about. Now I can switch from the telling part to the showing part, and I hope this works also for the people online. Let's see. Where are we? Here we are. This is not what I wanted to show you. This is what I wanted to show you. So we've set up a website which offers, apart from some basic information about the guest book and some research context and stuff, some very nice statistics that we kind of collected from our data. But it is also the door to two different ways of exploring the guest book. The canvas view provides a digital canvas to intuitively explore the individual entries across time with options for zooming, filtering, searching, and details on demand. It is powered by the Vicus viewer, which was developed at the University of Applied Science in Potsdam in a project led by Marian Dirk, who, by coincidence, also co-authored the paper on the information flaneur. The more conventional full-page view is based on the open source OpenSeaDragon viewer, and it allows you to browse a digital copy of the guest book and see the entries in their original context, supplemented with additional information. So let's have a brief look at it and let's hope it works. There you go. This is the canvas view. This is the Vicus viewer. We have a short manual here how to use it on the left-hand side. There's these are the entries according to their year, so according to the date. And just from looking at this timeline, you can see there were sometimes years with more and years with less visitors. You can see a clear dent here in 1948, First Jewish-Arab War, the siege of Jerusalem. There were only 2 visitors in this year. And you can see a lot of people coming over in 1965. That were all the people who came for his funeral and the memorial services afterwards. Now you can zoom in, right, pan, go get lost, and just, you know, visually explore these entries. And then you can just click on them. You get all the information we could gather so far on an entry. And this viewer from the details from the metadata panel is directly linked to the other viewer, which is, as I said, more conventional, has the same information, same metadata, and you can then just, click yourself through the guest book. The entries are highlighted, so you can then, explore each and every single entry, get all the detailed information. There's also zooming, and you can go back. And there's no search option here. The search option is only in the Vicus viewer. There's this small search bar up here, and all the information that's in the guestbook, in all the languages that we transcribed, all the alphabets can be searched here. So it's just a very basic full text search, and it then gives you the relevant entries. And like one of the best features, I think, of the Vicus viewer is these keywords. So if you're interested in, let's say, only entries that were written with ball pen, then you just click on ball pen and it shows you only the entries that were written in ball pen. And here again, you can see the technological development of writing implements as it's a historical development. And you can also combine keywords. And my favorite keyword now is this one. We called it utterly unreadable. These are entries like this one. We don't even know what kind of script this is. It's apparently a short greeting with a signature, but I can't even tell which alphabet. So if you want to find out, if you want to tell us, there's a contact button in every details panel. So you can write to us, no, you can't read it, but I know it's my grandmother. This is how this works. And as you can see, the Vicus viewer, offers a perspective both for the bird, you can get this overview, and for the frog, so you can go into the details and go into the mud, as Freeman Dyson said. Now, once we're done talking here, you can give it a go at the touch table over here. It's not optimized for touch equipment yet, so sometimes it's a bit laggy, and it works on your smartphone, but it's better the bigger the screen. So if you really want to explore. Now, to encourage reflections, get back to a normal view. Now, to encourage reflections on digitization, on different forms of human interaction with different media, we've kind of reversed the digitization process. We have created a physical facsimile of the guestbook from the digital images. And I have to admit, the graphic designer who's here and the printer and the bookbinder have outdone themselves. It's better than the original. And compared to the digital version, it doesn't need electricity. You can leaf through it like this, something you can't do in a digital version. You can leave your thumb in or your finger to bookmark temporarily a page. And so, it has all the advantages of a book. Of course, it does not contain all the metadata and none of the linked data. I didn't show you even, but wherever we could find them, the persons are linked to their authority files and to Wikipedia entries. And so you can go explore some more in other places. So you don't have this here. There's one link on page 100, but this is a different story and a whole fascinating research topic in itself. And please, there's coffee and something to bite, but please wipe your fingers before you either touch the table or the facsimile. They have both been very expensive. Yes, now I need to find the way back to my slideshow. It works. I'm amazed. Now, if you happen to get your hands on a guest book written in way more languages that you yourself can master, and you still want to discover the fascinating stories behind the entries, you certainly need help understanding the written artifact. In that case, a cluster of excellence understanding written artifacts is the kind of the perfect research environment. Because above all, it is a cluster of excellent researchers and colleagues who are experts in languages you didn't even know exist. In the spirit of interdisciplinary cooperation, many of my fabulous colleagues here have answered my cry for help in deciphering some of the entries. And luckily, I had 20 languages to offer. So there was something almost for everyone here at the cluster. There's German and English I could do mostly by myself. There's French and Italian, and there's Czech and Hungarian. There's Greek and Arabic and Chinese and Punjabi. And yes, there are even 3 cuneiform signs for our Assyriologists. And it's a bit as if this guestbook was made to show the potentials of the UVA cluster. So now if you want to go ahead and do all this I've just been talking about by yourself, this is the link, this is the entry point for exploring the guestbook. This leads you to the landing page and to the viewers, and then it should be online from now on. So this is the launch. Now it's out there, and we're very curious to see how it works, how people react, and if people can help us fill the gaps, because there's still a lot of gaps. There's certainly a lot of errors, but Amy Isart, who has done all the technical magic in the background, has really committed to make this work, and it works, and I'm really grateful for this. So, but my last question is, where do we go from here? If I learned anything about digital humanities in the last couple of years, it's that the age is about prospects and promises. It's never about what you did or what you do, but about what you or someone else could do in the future, with the appropriate funding, of course. And so here's what could be done with a guestbook based on data we already have or could retrieve and create. We could, for example, add contextual boxes. This is a feature of the Vicus viewer, to add kind of context for each year of the entry, like what's biographical or historical context information. We could link persons, visitors, to their own archives in the NLI. There are a few have their own archives. There are correspondence files in the Ben-Gavriêl archive, so we could also link them. So you have the visitor and then the letters between him or her and the visitor. We could, this has been a dream, and we've already mentioned the difficulties of handwritten text recognition. There are hundreds of pages of diary entries that we have digitized, but they are barely readable because he has a horrible handwriting. But the idea to match the diary entries with the visits is kind of fascinating and intriguing to see who was there and what he wrote about it afterwards. And there's a very long 2-page entry for this visit of the Nazi, which is, I transcribed it manually, and it's really interesting. We could add a map view, as you've probably seen. Some of the visitors gave location information, where they came from, like from Canada, from Australia, from Switzerland. And so you could also kind of situate the visitors in on a map, or add a similarity view. And we just need a nice algorithm from Hussein who would kind of arrange us the snippets. And we could include, and this is the last point I want to make, we could include 52 loose pages from the Vienna guestbook, because before moving to Jerusalem, they were living in Vienna and had the same kind of open house. But from this Vienna guestbook, only a few pages survived. They are in a very bad shape, and they are barely readable because it's almost everything is in pencil on very brown paper. But we have them scanned, we have them maybe at some point. We can include them because some of the visitors reoccur also in the Vienna pages. Now, some of these things will hopefully be implemented within the next month. Others will have to wait, and some might never be realized. But I thank you very much for your attention, and I will now hand over to Martin Zeman. Let me just check, yes. To Martin Zeman from the Hub of Computing and Data Science, who will talk a bit about the more technical side and their interest in this collaboration. I mean, I've just been talking about the humanities part here. And therefore, I will have to unshare my screen. And I need to make Martin audible.
Should work. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we hear you very well.
Great, perfect.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, good. It sounded like great. So yeah, sorry that I cannot make it today because I have a sick child at home, so we had to improvise a bit. But still, I am as excited about this project as Sebastian and all the rest of you were, because I mean, it's for us, it's pretty interesting. We basically started with those scanned documents, right, and try to get our heads around. For us computer scientists, it's not the usual material we work with. So yeah, it was a pretty interesting journey, and so yeah, now I'm going to give you just a quick guide through the technical details we did. But still, let me briefly introduce the Hub of Computing and Data Science, because it's kind of a unique infrastructure at the University of Hamburg. So we've been founded in late 2021, are currently 18 people with a really diverse background. Everybody a strong footprint in computer science, but also interdisciplinary track record, different experiences, and growing. And what we basically do in the Hub of Computing Science, we are a central unit of the university, so we try to support the whole bunch of researchers across disciplines at the University of Hamburg in becoming more digital, right? So we try to support interdisciplinary research and the application of innovative digital methods. So a lot of consulting, a lot of support, also a project, yeah, definition and projects to do. Still, we are also kind of responsible to ensure that the overarching digital strategy of the University of Hamburg is implemented. Our take is the research side of things, so that's what we are talking about. And one angle we do it is that we aim for widespread use of digital methods, and to disseminate those, we have this methodology competence center where we try to collect good use cases from all the disciplines, and then share our learnings with others to enhance their research practice. At the end, we also kind of try to enabling exchange for further collaboration of methodological sciences and the applied sciences in everything around digital, applied AI, etc. And maybe one brief structural perspective on it. So at the university, we of course have different areas of research. Every individual researcher, we have different projects happening, research centers, and of course the top-notch clusters of excellence like understanding written artifacts. And the university has some services for researchers in regard to digitalization. So sorry. So on the bottom we have the general data science AI research community. Then building on it, we have the regional data center, which does basic services like proposing all the and providing the infrastructure, but also has high performance computing. Then above we got the Center for Sustainable Research Data Management. So we have repositories where we can sustain all the research data we generated and collected. They also provide Gen AI access throughout the university. And us at the Hub of Computing and Data Science, and we try, as said, to spread digital methods, also do joint research as this project with together with Sebastian. So, but where did we actually start? And I think this was where Sebastian heard about us, was prior work on the Levitzow album, which is basically a compendium of drawings of Ezekiel Levitzow, who was a kind of middle-class man in the late 17th century. And what is interesting about this album is that it's a pretty nice example how the arts education liberated in the late 17th century. Because prior there were academies that did all the training on arts, and he was kind of a self-told painter that learned throughout travels across Europe. And together with Iris Vanderholm of the art history department, we had this joint project, which was research-based learning. So she had some seminars with students, and together with the State and University Library in Hamburg and the Hamburger Kunsthalle, we had two exhibitions where we provided the digital side of things to enable this kind of immersion and combination of historical art analysis on the one hand, and interactive digital media and nice user experiences on the other hand. So this was kind of our warm-up for the Ben-Gavriêl Guestbook. And in starting our collaboration, we of course had some decisions to make, and obviously there were challenges in front of us. First of all, how to make such data accessible for especially a diverse target audience, right? We deal with a pretty heavy material in terms of you need to dive deep into it to get your head around it. It's labor intensive to fully understand it, make it accessible, and then people from researchers that are really deep into all this material to a broader public is what we aim for. And so this idea of digital flaneurs, informational flaneuring is something where Sebastian and I connected pretty easily early on. And this was kind of one of the challenges. How can we immerse people into this material to get lost and jump right deep into the rabbit hole and discover every treasure that is in this artifact? But then we still have some more basic challenges, like the identification of actual signatures, languages, as we have heard about, and authors. So there was a lot of manual labor also involved. So then what tech stack did we decide upon? We said, well, we want to do something that is easy reusable, has some chance to sustain, right, and be easily expanded. So for all the data processing, we used a Python pipeline to be able to scale it up and to be future-proof. Output-wise, we had a web front end. As we already heard, you can use it on your mobile phone, on large touch screens, etc. So it's something pretty accessible. And for the visualization, we had the Vicus viewer on the one hand, which is this nice detailed perspective on different facets of the material, and OpenSeaDragon on the other hand to propose this more kind of book-like experience in your browser. Obviously, it's not as cool as the facsimile, but it scales way better. On the positive note, both tools are open source, so we can use it, can expand, can work with it, and it's also already kind of well adopted in the digital humanities community. And this ensures accessibility and compatibility with research methods in place. So benefits, of course, it's modular. We can expand it. We can adapt to different use cases. We can increase the corpus, etc. It is well accessible and has a nice user experience already, and we can adapt. So what did we actually do? So some figures we already heard, and based on those scans by the NLI and UVA, we were able to have those 204 single pages to work with. And one of the initial steps was let's say kind of a team building initiative to identify all those signatures. So we used this tool, Wikogito, also web-based, and we had one of our, I think it was our second meeting or something, and we then just said, well, let's do it a bit together to get also immersed in the material and to get all those bounding boxes. And yeah, as it turns out, it's quite hard to identify different signatures, different contexts. Is it a group visiting? Is it just someone who randomly wrote his signature above another one? So really, you get really deep into the material suddenly. And afterwards, we used our beloved tool Excel to deal with all the data. So out of those, roughly 1,200 bounding boxes were then 1,200 Excel rows that we then with OpenRefine try to normalize a bit, so getting some standards in it, and obviously manual data collection, and it was quite intense. On the next slide, I show some details of it. And then afterwards did all the Python processing. So this basically means setting up automatically all these config files for the Vicus viewer, getting all the snippets of each signature in it, and reference it to the OpenSeaDragon, where we put up all this website, this book experience, and the data at hand. So, seen here, you see, we have always this link of the Dickus viewer. So if you drill deep in it, you have more the frog-like perspective, right? And can then switch to OpenSeaDragon to your bird's view, see the signature in the context, which of course is also interesting. Mhm. And then we always tracked some statistics to to see how far we've got. And what's really interesting is the part to add more content to it, right? So we based on names we identified, authority files and places, we could then leverage the potential of other online sources to improve even data to see relations between the actors that we prior haven't seen. So yeah, at the end, Sebastian already showed you the guest book. So we really love to get your feedback and comments on it, and hope you have a lot of fun with it. And time flies by exploring all of it. But for us, this shouldn't be the ending point, because I mean, what's next, right? We heard that we digitalized 24 archives that could be used. So this is what we try to do in this year, to work on one of those archives. And Sebastian decided for the philosopher and psychologist Lazarus archive of Moritz Lazarus, which is quite interesting because it looks structured. At least we have several hundreds of folders. Still, the content has been relocated a lot of times, so we are not sure what to expect there. But we know the artifact gets more diverse than before. Data set is larger, so this is something we try to explore. How far can we get with our tool chain? What is still missing? Where do we need to adapt? And yeah, hopefully in a year from now, we can talk about this one with you all. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, I'm curious and anxious at the same time to see what we can achieve with all these thousands of images from the Lazarus archive. I will reshare my. Oh, no, we need to do it differently. No, share my screen. All right, and here we go. And there's one last point on our program, a comment by Hannah Wimmer, whom I now invite to give us her thoughts from the art historian's point of view on what we've done here. So just a second. There she is.
Thank you. Now it's only me standing between you and the outcome of this wonderful project. So I will try to make it short. I think lots of very important points have already been mentioned and in a much more eloquent way than I could do it right now. Just to follow up on Martin Semmer's remark that their digital interface wasn't as cool as the physical facsimile, and no doubt it is super cool, and I'm very much looking forward to having a look at this. However, I think that's probably we can probably say that they are cool and very valuable tools in very different ways, right? So as Sebastian has already pointed out, not a single person here would be able to read all the entries in the guest book. So we rely on the collaborative effort in deciphering familiar and less familiar scripts and languages and presenting the results in a way that makes them accessible, in a way that looking at the original might not. On the other hand, there are, of course, particular challenges and shortages that come with working with digital reproductions, no matter how how well marked up they are, but they, as Martin Zeman just showed the picture with all the little folders that all look the same and that all have just session numbers and nothing else. Being confronted with this kind of data is in a way even more disorientating an experience than being faced with an archive box which you can open, but then you have like different artifacts, and it's only then that you realize how much the materiality, the forms and formats of the documents that you have in front of you really help you with making sense of them initially. So I'm standing here not so much, I think, as an art historian than as a member of UBA, who is also a member of our working group FNT, or Facing New Technologies, which in the past was very focused on looking at historical changes in technologies and how that impacted and formed written artifacts and practices around them. But we have more recently shifted towards focusing more on our own practices, because while the written artifact as a material object is very much the point of departure and the recurring point of reference for us at UBA, it is usually a digital reproduction or even addition that we work with when trying to understand these written artifacts. And so it is worth looking at how these digital tools relate to the material written artifact. And recently we have been discussing different concepts, among them the digital twin, which is a term that was coined for in the field of engineering as a name for an interactive model of a system or a machine that can be used for research and development. But this is a term that has also increasingly been adopted first in architecture and then in cultural heritage, for example, to really be used as a name of a model that is formed by the knowledge about real world entities, that is stored in a digital format in the virtual model, and that is flexible in including and extracting knowledge about this real world entity. So it's not a clone, it's not a facsimile of the object, but it uses different modes of representing and storing information that will help us gain a deeper understanding of the artifact. And this signatures of the Friendship Project, which Sebastian discussed a few months ago, is in many ways paradigmatic of what a digital twin of a written artifact can achieve, I think, because it is not a mere reproduction, but it makes data not only available, but it makes it explorable and searchable in ways that are different from the kinds of access that the book itself encourages, but at the same time, it never loses its sort of emphatic twinness, right? It never loses its reference to the absent material written artifact. So by connecting this Vicus interface with the viewer, it allows contextualization of the individual element, but and last but not least, the number of keywords that you can explore in a moment, or a number of keywords, give information on material aspects that may be less visible in the digital images. So, such as, for example, the writing implements. So it makes this object understandable and tangible in ways that many of these digital presentations and editions of objects do not. This project, I think, has brilliantly shown that the creation of a very sophisticated digital twin is possible within quite a limited time, albeit with unlimited enthusiasm and initiative, of course, and with the use of open access software. So I really hope that this encourages more of these kinds of initiatives, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what further develops and how it branches out from this particular object. And maybe the sort of the feature is still missing to the engineering and written artifact relationship in the digital twin topic. The interactive and the feedback element may well come into place when we're looking at the digital twin of an entire collection, right? The random folders that do not necessarily display a meaningful order of the archived materials may well be modified either just in the virtual world or in the reality. We don't know, but yes. So this is me done. Thank you for holding out. For now, I think it's time for coffee, baked goods, and most for the enjoyment of the glittering skyline of those bars that the Vickers interface presents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just take the liberty of one final remark, or maybe two. Thank you all who contributed to this event and to the project. It was intense, but it was also very rewarding because we could see how much can be achieved within a limited time frame and with a rather small group of people who were very committed. Now, Martin has mentioned the question of sustainability, and there may be people, maybe not in this room, but somewhere, who would say, well, this is all very nice and shiny, but can you be sure that the data will be available in 10 years? And yes, we've thought about that as well. So we'll keep the nice and shiny version because it's more fun to play with. But there will also be a data set of the research data we have collected that will be stored in the research data repository and can then be requested and downloaded. Not right now because I still want to write an article about it, so I'll keep it to myself for the time being. But we will make it available for others to do their own kind of explorations, because all the choices we made regarding the keywords, regarding the information we categorize, are of course our choices. It's a limited view, it's special interest, and other people will have many other questions on the same material. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you, University of Hamburg, for just letting this idea run wild, an idea I have carried with me for some time, and for UVA, the cluster, who just gives the infrastructure for doing something like this. You have an idea and you want to go where it leads you. And it led us to interesting places. To my colleagues here at the cluster, to Matan and the NLI staff, who have been very nice to work with through all these years in the previous project and also right now. And to our student assistants who set this all up and are constantly working in the background to make sure the Zoom meeting works and everyone is hearing everybody. And I also set up the coffee and pastries, who I just brought over from the Jewish community of Hamburg. So the little nice feature of this event, so that we have kosher catering for the coffee after talking about this guest book from Jerusalem. And I think that's it. Enjoy, eat, drink, explore, leave through, but leave the touch table in this room and leave the facsimile in this room. But you can stay. So thank you very much.